In tonight's Dateline Defense, the U.S., Russia, and possibilities for a Syrian transition. President Obama sounded optimistic today. He thinks Russia will come around to the idea that Syrian President Bashar Assad needs to step down before the world can resolve his country's civil war. Joining me with the latest is Lieutenant Colonel Anthony Shaffer. He's a CIA-trained senior intelligence operations officer, best-selling author, and senior fellow at the London Center for Policy Research.
Hey, Morris.
Tony, these comments came on the sidelines of a huge climate summit in Paris. Do you share the president's optimism? Will Russia come around?
I think Russia will come around, but not for the reasons President Obama outlined. The real reason is Putin is getting what he needs. What Putin needs is influence in the region. So, frankly, as long as Russia is successful in insinuating itself, which it has been so far, in gaining some level of control and dominance, one of the first things they're going to do, apparently, is put this S-400 anti-aircraft system in Syria for their own purposes. It's to defend their equities, not Assad. They've actually telegraphed, and I've been on other interviews with Russian counterparts, that they may be willing to look for Assad to leave, an exit for him. And that tells me everything I need to know. They don't care about Assad. It's all about their influence, and clearly that's what they're focused on.
Now, meanwhile, tensions are still high between Russia and Turkey.
Correct.
Last week, Ankara shot down a Russian warplane that crossed into Turkish airspace. This week, Moscow charged that ISIS is moving oil through Turkey at an industrial scale. Now, this is important to note because it's one way that ISIS makes money.
Right.
Should the U.S. be concerned, and do you think Turkey is helping ISIS?
First, I think we have to understand the obvious that ISIS is making a lot of money. To do that, they have to do a number of things. One of those things is sell oil. And so where has that all been going? And the answer is yes, I do believe Turkey has been a co-conspirator, perhaps not the government itself, but elements of Turkey that the government is aware of has been helping ISIS. I think what happened here, Morris, is that Vladimir Putin did interfere with that commerce. Once their airliner got shot down in the Sinai, they started taking the ISIS threat seriously and attacking these economic interests of ISIS. In this case, these interests overlap with some elements in Turkey. I think this was Erdogan basically pushing back against Putin, saying, hey, enough is enough on this interfering with our economic interests. And I think the result of that is, yes, I do believe that there's a relationship with Turkey and ISIS, maybe not an official one, but one clearly that's been going for at least 18 to 20 months.
Right. People wonder how ISIS gets its money and continues to do what it's doing by all the new Toyota pickup trucks and everything else. It's through the oil trade, among other things. So basically a modern-day Arab mafia.
Absolutely, and we're talking about $2 billion plus a year income by ISIS. This is no small thing. $2 billion can buy a lot of terror. And when you consider the Paris attacks probably cost them on order of maybe $100,000, they're lining up for a lot more. And so this is something I think Russia did do. They did attack the economic interests, and I think Erdogan pushed back, and I think he's going to regret pushing back against the Russians on this.
They rob banks. They have a protection racket. They're basically the mafia of the Middle East. All right, we're also tracking a new stage of the Syrian conflict tonight. The British-based Syrian Observatory for Human Rights says a ceasefire has been reached in the city of Homs. The last opposition group will leave, and state institutions will return. If true, Tony, how significant are these developments?
This is very, and this is one of the things I've called for multiple times, right here on your show several times. Look, the ungoverned space is what we have to either preclude or take back. It is the ungoverned space which allowed ISIS to thrive both in Syria, in Iraq, and in Libya. We need to bring back in governance. We need to bring in stability. That's what the region needs. So this is a very good sign. The question now becomes, can it be sustained? I'd like to believe so, and it's more important that we focus on stability for the region at this point, rather over Bashar al-Assad staying or not staying. I think that will resolve itself eventually once you bring stability back. With that said, though, this is a good sign. I'd like to believe that this is a trend in the right direction.
All right, in neighboring Iraq, the U.S. will add to its Special Operations Force.
Sure. That's
according to Defense Secretary Ash Carter.
Right.
They'll try to help Iraqi and Kurdish forces fight ISIS. Has the situation improved in Iraq?
Well, the General Joe Dunford, along with Ash Carter today, said ISIS is not contained. Therefore, the posit then is, what are we going to do to actually do something to help? And this is one of the areas we can help. Work with the Iraqis who are still working with us more readily. Let's remember, Iraq is a fractured country. It is split along the lines of Sunni, Shia, and Kurd. We have to understand that, accept that for what it is. We are already working with the Kurds. We have to work with the Sunni elements, which are still willing to work with us. The Shia, for better or for worse, have kind kind of gone over to the Iranians. So we have to work with what's there rather than wish we had something better and move forward. So I think special operations is going to be the boots on the ground of choice for us, and we'll try to organize our allies in such a way to be more effective in going against ISIS.
Before you go, Tony, bring this all together. President Obama says Russia, Turkey, Syria, and other countries have a common enemy, namely ISIS. You think that will unite the region?
I like to believe so. I mean, look, President Obama's focus on global warming this week has been hugely unhelpful. So I'm hoping his words today will help bring back some confidence in our allies. We have to approach this like we did during World War II. We have to figure out a way to bring our allies into this and let them do the heavy lifting. We enable them. I'd like to believe that's the direction we're now going.
Is ISIS helping any countries? Saudi Arabia, Iran? I mean, we've got all these tribal factions, and the dirty dealing under the table. I mean, ISIS has to be good for somebody there, otherwise they wouldn't flourish for so long.
ISIS has been an enabler for the Saudis to do something which is basically create influence in areas which they didn't have before, but it backfired. I think most of the Arab countries which actually helped, Qatar, Saudi Arabia, Turkey, are all recognizing that essentially they misinterpreted what would happen with a radical element like ISIS. And I think they are now being threatened by the very monster they've created. I think that's what they've recognized.
It's like having a pet snake. You've got to be careful because the snake will turn around and bite you.
Biting everybody at this point.
Lieutenant Colonel Anthony Shaffer with the London Center for Policy Research. Thanks, Tony.
Thank you.